Hi everyone, it's Aya James. The new Abattoir of Sigil event is super challenging. I spent a good number of hours testing different versions of the ball lightning build, and crafted one that I find most fun and efficient to play that I passed tier 14 with the new tiers of blood glyph at level 14. This build doesn't use any uber uniques like Harlequin Quest or Melted Heart of Silic. So you can use the build directly instead of having to farm uber bosses repetitively while hoping for a drop. I will cover all the key synergies and I put the full build at the end of the video. Let's get started. Before diving into the build, I want to quickly go through the keys on the new Abattoir of Sigil event. To be able to play the Abattoir of Sigil event, we will need to complete all seasonal journey chapters. The reward for the last chapter is 3000 potent blood, which usually isn't super useful as we have likely upgraded all vampiric powers already at that point. The extra potent blood can be used on alts, like starting a new character, and that's it. The reward for the Abattoir of Sigil event is a new glyph that can greatly improve our damage. My glyph is at level 15 right now, and it doubles my overall damage with some extra additive damage and damage reduction. One note is that the core stats here includes not only intelligence, but also strength, dexterity, and willpower. So investing Paragon points into all stat nodes within the radius gets us the best result. The best position to use the new glyph is the burning board, where we get extra damage reduction from burning enemies from the extra bonus to the rare nodes. Damage reduction is super important in the Abattoir of Sigil event, as we may die instantly in high tiers, leading to failure without any rewards. The glyph radius will be 5 instead of 4 at level 50, that we can take further nodes around. I have a different Paragon board for that, and you can find the build link in the description of the video. I will go through all the key synergies next. You can find the full build details at the end of the video, or use the build link in the description of the video. We use Flicker Step in the build to maintain permanent ultimate. Yes, permanent ultimate, 100% uptime, as each evade gives us up to 10 seconds cooldown reduction on ultimate. And since attacks reduce evade's cooldown, we can use evade pretty much once per second. So as long as we evade a couple of times through enemies during the 10 seconds of the ult, the ult will be ready to cast again when it ends. Flicker Step also gives damage reduction from close enemies to help us survive better. So what does it mean to have permanent ultimate uptime? First, of course, it increases our damage, as each ball lightning we cast triggers one random shock skill from these 4 skills when the ultimate is active. The first 2 are core skills that will trigger the accelerating aspect. The third is a cooldown skill, and with the protection passive, we will get barrier by just casting ball lightnings. Plus we run ice armor in this build, we can maintain barrier 100% of the time. That not only helps us survive and face tank high tier monsters like tier 14, but also ensures that we get the benefits from the Storm Swell aspect and the Conceited aspect 100% of the time, that both rely on barrier uptime. Plus we use Prey on the Weak and Accursed Touch vampiric powers, so that every enemy is vulnerable 100% of the time too. That we satisfied another condition for the Storm Swell aspect, and we use the second passive on Ice Armor so that we generate 50% more barrier with all the crazy damage we do. Since Lightning Spear will be casted from the ultimate a lot too, I put points into its passive to stun all enemies around, even though we don't cast it explicitly on the skill bar. So we saved 1 skill slot, and we are able to apply permanent stun to all monsters. Amazing, right? Another key synergy is to use ball lightning enchantment, where all quick hits can trigger static ball lightnings on the ground. That insanely improves our damage. Look at how many static ball lightnings we have here. One extra note is that we have high lucky hit chance from teleport, that we will put 5 ranks to teleport in this build. To be able to cast teleport every 1 to 2 seconds to proc tons of static ball lightnings on the ground, with the help from 3+ cooldown reduction stats and the key passive overflowing energy. Plus we have the shimmering teleport passive that we get another 30% damage reduction for 3 seconds after using teleport. With the protection passive and teleport being a cooldown skill too, casting teleport every 1 to 2 seconds maintains a 30% damage reduction buff and a 30% maximum life barrier. This helps us further face tank mobs in tier 14 without problems. For enchantment comparison, I tested using Chain Lightning, Frozen Orb, or Ice Blades. I can get as high as tier 12 with these 3 variants after multiple runs, but I passed tier 14 in just 2 tries with the Ball Lightning enchantment. What a big difference! If I get better boss affixes and a higher level tiers of Blood Glyph, clearing tier 15 will not be difficult. Another common situation in high tier AOZ is that it takes time to clear elites, so elites become unstoppable pretty often. To clear these unstoppable elites faster, we will use the exploit aspect to boost our damage by another 40%. We also use the Tyration Ring to boost our damage by 60% multiplicatively as we run Ball Lightning to trigger lightning damage, Firebolt enchantment to trigger fire damage, Ice Blades to trigger cold damage, and the Infection Vampiric Power to trigger poison damage. Plus the Lucky Hit Chance stat will be helpful to proc even more static Ball Lightnings from the Ball Lightning enchantment. The Domination Vampiric Power is also very useful in AOZ as it instantly kills injured non-elites. Plus the 24% multiplicative damage boost, non-elites are 100 to 0'd in seconds even on high tier AOZ, as we apply permanent stun to monsters from the Lightning Spear casted from the ultimate. I also tweaked my build to fully unleash the power of the Elementalist aspect. We will get the maximum mana nodes in the Paragon board, a maximum mana stat on the helm, 20% mana cost reduction on the amulet, so that we have our maximum mana to be greater than 100 plus 1 cast of Ball Lightning. What does it mean if we satisfy this condition? It means we can pretty much apply full-time Elementalist aspect benefit to our Ball Lightnings. Like every Ball Lightning gets a 40% crit chance improvement. Why? Because we have massive resource generations from the Static Discharge, the Ball Lightning passive, and the Invigorating Conduit that we recover 12 mana per Quackling energy pickup. So we cast 1 to 2 Ball Lightnings, teleport or evade, and recover mana to full, and cast 1 to 2 Ball Lightnings again, teleport or evade to recover mana to full again, so that each Ball Lightning is casted above 100 mana, getting the 40% crit chance buff from the Elementalist aspect. The 40% crit chance is already a massive damage boost, but it is not just limited to this. We have Devouring Blaze that further improves our crit hit damage by another 42%. And the more crit chance we have, the more static Ball Lightnings on the ground there will be. That's why all these high tier monsters are melted so quickly. On top of the mana cost reduction, we do need another 2 resource generation stats to maintain infinite mana. We can get them from the 2 rings, so we can cast infinite Ball Lightnings while maintaining our mana to be above 100 to trigger the Elementalist aspect. We'll also use a one-handed weapon plus offhand instead of a two-handed weapon, so that we can get another damage reduction from burning enemies stat plus 2 10% cooldown reduction stats to help us cast more Ice Armor, Flame Shield, and Teleport. And we get another 7.5 crit chance to better synergize with everything. For armor, we will need 3% armor stats from these 4 positions to reach 13,500 armor with max disobedience stacks, so that we get the upper bound of 85% damage reduction from armor against enemies above level 155 plus in Abattoir of Zir. We also use the Adept Glyph in the Paragon board because the 20% enlarged range is beneficial to both Ball Lightnings casted and the static Ball Lightnings from the enchantment. Last, we use the Reinforced Glyph to get 15% extra damage reduction as we have 100% barrier uptime, and we get the magic and rare nodes for damage reduction from elites in the burning board. I know it's a lot of synergies, but don't worry, you don't need to remember all of them. You can find the full build details at the end of the video or the build link in the description of the video. I also tested the performance between the 2 Paragon boards, where in one board I removed a few nodes from some glyphs so that I can use 7 glyphs and get all the glyph bonuses. While in the other one I only used 6 glyphs, but I can max all nodes within the glyph radius and get tons of additive damage. Here's my final results. To simplify the calculations, I assume that the Elementalist aspect always grants a 40% crit chance buff, I also assume that all monsters are crowd controlled, so that the additive damage from crowd control is always considered, along with the 1.2 multiplier from the control glyph, and taking into account of 6 ranks of Devouring Blaze that improves crit damage by another 42%. You can see the 6 glyph one is actually better than the 7 glyph one, because the total damage is higher even when monsters are treated as always being crowd controlled. In real fights, the monsters are only partially crowd controlled, so the 6 glyph version will outperform the 7 glyph version a lot. My LZ run showed similar results too. I can only complete tier 12 with the 6 glyph version, but pass tier 14 with the 6 glyph version. Math is always our friend. For the skill rotation, we first teleport in to stay close to mobs. Then we use Alt, Ice Armor, Ice Blades, and keep casting Ball Lightnings, and keep using teleport or using evade through monsters to reduce ultimate cooldown and pick up crackling energies to recover mana. I recommend saving Flame Shield and use it when we are crowd controlled but without teleport to use, or escape from dangerous situations like monster death explosions. And we keep casting ultimate to keep permanent ultimate. And here are a few tips to push high tier LZ. The first tip is to avoid clearing everything we see. We need to fight high density of monsters to best utilize the 10-minute timer, since we have the domination vampiric power that instantly execute injured non-elites. A lot of times we can just clear the non-elites and keep moving forward. Especially I recommend not fighting the ranged elites one by one. They run away from the high density crowd and it is not worthy to chase them. Usually I just jumped in and cleared the non-elites and keep going. Another tip is to save a shrine before the boss fight to maximize our combat power against the 3 bosses, and we can always go back to town to refill potions when it runs out. I did refill at the end of the tier 14 run and lost around 30 seconds. Last, I recommend using the plus 50 maximum resource elixir for more elementalist aspect triggering. It enables me to achieve at least plus 1 tier for pushing Abattoir of the Year. You might wonder, why don't I use Harley Quinn Quest, or the other name Shako, in my build, which is considered the best item in the game. I farmed many dual runs, but I wasn't lucky enough to get one, and I believe most people don't have one either. So I crafted this build without Shako to still push high LZ tiers. If you got Shako, you can remove the ever-living aspect while keeping the disobedience and the exploit. The setup should improve another 1 to 2 tiers, but make sure you still have 3% armor stats from these 3 positions to achieve 13,500 armor. You may also wonder, why don't I use low health plus damage reduction while injured stats plus the resilience vampiric power? It is because I haven't got a good job yet, even after farming this much LZ. The item rewards are not superb, but I believe for most people it is not intuitive to get those stats while farming before level 100, and we usually end up with these normal defensive stats instead. If you enjoy LZ so far and wanted to push further, I do recommend getting the damage reduction while injured stats on both pants and amulet, and replace the domination vampiric power with the resilience vampiric power, and replace the reinforced glyph with the elementalist glyph for further damage, since we have tons of damage reduction from the low health setup. One other note is that we can keep doing low tier LZ to get more sigil powder to keep trying high tiers. It costs me 1200 powder to craft a tier 9, and I get 1500 powder back once I successfully complete it. And from my experience, tier 9 is a sweet spot to farm Glyph XP efficiently. The initial Abattoir of the Year event wasn't great. The vampiric power affix on any of the final boss will ruin the whole run. Glad we had a hotfix that removed the annoying affix and largely increased the Glyph XP reward. But in my opinion, it still needs some improvements. First, the lack of item rewards is a bit frustrating. Even with stats rerolls, I haven't been able to find one piece of gear that is similar quality to my equipped ones. Second, the failure and the reward system needs a rework too. In Diablo 3 Greater Rifts, dying leads to a penalty of time, but people can keep playing after dying. Going overtime is also okay that people can still receive all the rewards, as long as the bosses are defeated. Just people cannot go to the next tier. But in LZ, either dying or going overtime gives us no rewards, that our time is totally wasted. I feel the rewarding is undertuned now and needs to be more incremental to keep players motivated and have fun. What I enjoyed in LZ though is testing the limits of my build, iterating on it, and creating one that strikes a good balance between damage and survivability to push into high tiers. It comes with a big sense of accomplishment, and I hope this video will help you craft your own build and have fun in testing it. How do you feel about the LZ event? Leave a comment. I will quickly scan my full build on the right with the highlights of my tier 14 run on the left. If you like the video, please help me share it and subscribe to my channel for more Minmax sorcerer builds. Thank you for watching and see you next time.